You know what, Scorpio? I just finished your reading. Oh boy, that was intense. New love, reconciliation, soulmate, past life relationship, honeymoon, separation. So it is kind of like to be or not to be time. So, shall we start? Hi Scorpio, and welcome to your Gemini transition. So basically that is like May 21st to June 21st forecast. So as you have noticed, like the cards were just like jumping out, and seemingly some of them are contradictory. So you have honeymoon, you have separation, romantic feelings, finances and career, free yourself, wedding. This could be the one, but pay attention to the red flags and forgiving and learning. So it is definitely telling me that you're like, oh my gosh, in which direction do I go? Well, it could be with the same person that you are reaching that a point of that inflection point, right? Where is this going to go down this like road where we are going to have the honeymoon, or are we going to separate? It's kind of like one of those big things because they are romantic feelings. On the other hand, you kind of like really maybe want to pay attention to the finances and to the career, and maybe you feel overly organized, overly kind of like trapped, because look at this unicorn, beautiful unicorn, trapped somewhere for somebody else's pleasure, and this is like not the point. Wedding, it could be that marriage is on your mind, or that there are marriages happening around you, and it's reminding you of where you really want to go, or simply there is a person who is maybe married who is somehow influential in your life. And I really think this last row is the key. This could be the one. Pay attention to the red flags and forgiving and learning. It's like literally this is a learning lesson of something that you kind of like know that even if you really, really want something, if that something is like not showing you that path, the light, and instead you get these like red flags, then this is like something you really have to kind of like acknowledge instead of just simply walking away. And it's maybe asking you to realize, hey, have I been there before, and what is really, really important? And now you have like another water over here that is showing up, or a waterfall, right? So it's a lovely card because water flows naturally from higher to lower ground, right? Eventually finding its way to the ocean, right? It is one of the nature's most, I think, exquisite demonstrations is waterfall. Look at this. Never saying, okay, let me just come to the lodge and see if I want to jump, like we people do, right? It's kind of like something graceful and something powerful and effortless. It's like no wonder that we people are so attracted, and we just kind of want to watch them because we feel that enormous energy, and to some extent we feel respect, right? This is also talking about patience and persistency and being skillful, right? Never doubting, keep going forward, right? But also going with the flow, right? I think taking everything in account, that you guys maybe have come to basically the edge of your comfort zone, and maybe you're fighting to resist moving past, you know, that perceived precipice, right, of who you are, how you can be, or, you know, what I guess you can do. It is time to move beyond that edge and allow yourself to do so with ease rather than struggle. And yeah, physical exertion might be necessary, so I think kind of engaging in something that can take your mind off thinking about is quite a bit, which I see here. Kind of engage yourself in activity to literally take your mind off these things so the results can really come, because you, after all, you're Scorpio. You can actually exist in a really deep, dark waters, deep waters, where there is like no light, And so you have to kind of really trust your gut instincts to know where you're going, or why do you really want to go there, right? Why do you want to get there? In any case, when things are hard, they're hard for a reason. So approach anything that you're doing presently, whether this is a situation or relationship, with awareness and grace. Just don't try to make it effortless. You kind of like, when you force it, it just creates more strain, right? I think the key here, when I said, is, you know, allow this to happen, right? It's not a time for fight, but just to surrender, to see what happens, right? You will find that ultimately waters will start being calm, because whenever kind of like this energy and effort goes through, they end up in the ocean. This is also the card that, to me, connects to solar plexus and its confidence. And it's kind of like knowing that, you know, life has lots of different kind of like options. And sometimes when we kind of like end an encounter barrier, that there is always a solution. And hence, I guess, there are like all these different opportunities that are presented over here. So let's kind of like put this aside, because I'm sure, and looks like I'm getting enormous energy of Scorpio. I don't actually remember ever in general reading that I got this much. And guys, let me remind you, this is a general reading, and that means that not everything may resonate, but also, and that's why I like to hear your comments, but also you should check your ascendant, and you should check your moon sign to kind of check on your emotions. So okay, clumsy, you're going to come out. So let's see what you have on the bottom of the deck. Heart-to-heart conversation. That makes sense. Honey, should I pack my bags to go for honeymoon, or should I pack my bags to leave? It is kind of like really when things get serious, or when you really make a decision and sort of like you get that clarity where you're going, and then, you know, so for you it's kind of duality. It's the flow. If the flow is not there, and I think this is so important for you, Scorpio, it's so important to kind of like feel that you're kind of like embraced, and it's kind of like really important to have this honest discussion. And look at it here, you have Five of Cups, and Five of Cups to me is really talking about there is a loss of some kind when I see the Five of Cups. Five of Cups in the upright situation is talking about spilled milk, and maybe feeling sad over something that maybe you shouldn't feel sad about, right? It is like something that maybe could be prevented, and maybe you're beating yourself over it, I would say. And what I would say here, because this is reversed, it looks like that on some level, some of you feel that it's kind of like really hard to move forward, but fret not. You also have the Lovers, and you have the King of Pentacles. Maybe somebody's waiting for you to kind of like really vocalize what maybe is bothering, because if you're not willing to kind of like formulate where you're going, then you're not able to kind of like go there, right? It's almost like you want to reach destination, but you haven't decided what destination is, so hence how will you ever get there? So let me see where we get with this. This is kind of like really intense, I have to say. New love. Well, this could be new love, but for some reason I was also feeling there's lots of stuff that is coming up from the past, and either is related to the attitudes that we had and how we related with the others, or it's related to, did we resolve the issues to kind of like start something completely fresh. There you go, reconciliation, I'm telling you. So it could be both. If you're single, you might be actually having this like new doors open. If there was, you know, a rough patch, or you broke up with someone, you might actually decide to actually do that. Come back. Past life relationship, to me, it's always talking about something karmic, that maybe you have strayed away from your own path. So the person is knocking on your door and saying, hey, you know, I'm here, because you wrote me in your chart. I have these karma readings which literally tells you what kind of person will appear to take you off, you know, bad path, and what your path is, because you write them in. There was some kind of deception. Maybe you were fooling yourself. There are these both people wearing this mask over here. And then codependency. Well, I never like to see this card, because this kind of like tells me, you know, there is segmentation in a relationship where, you know, we fall in one of those archetypes and one of those roles. And this is definitely something why somebody from the past life would come and kind of like deal with that. Or somebody from past life could be still kind of stuck with you. There is like that feeling. Codependency is sort of like common karma, joint karma, especially for women in this 21st century, and also the 20th, 21st century, where, you know, we are bombarded with what we should be, and people stop living their own lives instead of, you know, reclaiming who you are and where you want to go. And you, Scorpio, by having this vast intuitive feeling, you kind of like really need to claim that back, because codependency means really being out of your element, like being fish out of water, behaving because somebody wants you to behave this way. It's like kind of like being forcefully trained with those electrical and probing kind of cattle probers, right? It's just like not a good feeling when somebody's pulling the strings and have all the cards in their hands, and you just like feel just like you're dancing to their tune, and yet you continue doing that because somehow you feel either unworthy or unloved, or if you don't kind of like stay in this line. So hence codependency can also talk about drugs and alcohol as well, but it definitely can talk about sometimes us latching on a person emotionally, or somebody latching on us. And that can actually talk about narcissistic attitudes in a relationship, where one person just like thinks they're so great and somebody else needs to earn them. You can just imagine how that's going to end up. Yeah, there it is. That's in your emotions. It is safe for you to love. You kind of have to redefine what love is for you, and how do you really want to continue in this world with what are your circumstances that you really want to resolve, because there are parts of you that still need healing. Maybe you were like, this deception is like somebody's presenting themselves like something they're not, and somebody's so great, you know how people are. And definitely there are those energies, especially in the beginning of relationships, where everybody wants to put their best foot forward, but then from that point on we are dipping. So when people don't have that initial period longer, then you have really nothing to fall back to when the trouble hits, and hence relationships are shorter than ever, because that initial part is like really what is building that mortar in between the bricks, and feeling safe, feeling that this person is going to be there for us, not after just we sleep with them. It's a big disappointment, or you're not what I thought you are, and off you go. So it has to be a little bit more than that. Worth waiting for. You might have somebody who kind of like is counting on you or betting on you. I'm calling in your soulmate right next to soulmate. This is really promising. However, love yourself first. So these contradictory messages are not really so contradictory if you really look into them, because they're saying that if you are not whole, right, and if there is like a chipped part in you, that always the energy is going to see that part. Yes, it's going to find your whole parts, but it's also going to just go there. And this is like that part of a puzzle where it's going to latch on. So hence, you're going to attract people who either have no boundaries, or who are willing to violate yours, or who are not willing to let you in into their world. And it can create that codependent kind of like thing. And codependency starts slow. Usually codependency starts with, oh my gosh, this partner is so amazing, and how could I not kind of like find, and you're almost like grateful, and that's kind of like that anchoring moment, that conditioning and they're great, I am not great. And then when they see that you're hooked, they just changed, right? So let's see, what else do we have? We have King of Cups reversed, we have the Moon reversed, we have Eight of Cups reversed, we have Eight of Pentacles, Queen of Pentacles reversed, Knave of Wands, Nine of Cups, and Ace of Cups reversed, Knave of Cups reversed, and King of Wands upright. Oh boy, this is going to be a ride this month. I can just like tell you this much right out of the gate. It's just kind of like buckle up, Scorpio. That's all I can say as a summary over here. So let's go back to this deception. Maybe you felt that something was like not on par. Maybe you felt it was time to move on and kind of like try to see your luck elsewhere, or just simply kind of like see if maybe you're settling, right? Because this is definitely sometimes like it's a hard decision to make, that we kind of like move forward from here, right? So it's sometimes really hard to move forward from something that is already a comfort. And a comfort is, this person is this and this and this and this, right? So this is like why it happens. You see it in the news all the time. Like, I mean, you think you have a happy marriage, and then, you know, this guy has basically lovers and, you know, stuff, and you're shocked. It's just like, you feel it just like happened, and it didn't happen. It was happening. You just like kind of like maybe either refused to see it, or you were too trusting, or they were too kind of like underhanded. So it is kind of like something that has to be explored. But this is definitely saying, look, you know, you kind of like have to also figure out that you are getting a good deal over here as well. It could have been that somebody has been left out in the cold, and there is like some kind of recovery from kind of situation that maybe somebody has left over here. The deception is also talking about facing it and seeing it for what it is. And maybe once when you've seen it, it was like not that great. Maybe you have been backstabbed, right? Maybe you have been accused for being the backstabber, or, you know, hurtful of some kind of like kind, with the Ten of Swords coming out here, and Five of Pentacles. It's always kind of like resonating on a level that something just like didn't work. So deception, either somebody tried to deceive you, or you came across as not candid, and hence you have been labeled somehow. So here there is like some kind of rebuilding. Whenever I see this Eight of Pentacles, I always think about Virgo. I don't know why necessarily. It's usually earth kind of energy. So there is something. Look at this. 8 and 2 is 10, and 19, 1 and 9 is 10, and all together is 20, which is basically judgment, which is your card, which is a past life. So this is kind of like making it very interesting. See, almost like this is giving me installments of what I need to tell you. So somebody from the past happened with whom you maybe had ordinary life. Ordinary meaning good life. Everything kind of like worked. But something happened. Something has been a matter of a choice. Something had to, maybe you have not chosen them. And maybe you did, and they didn't choose you. In any case, they came back in this life. This is the card of birth, marriages, celebrations. This also could be, well, usually past life relationship is with a partner you're interested in, but for some reason, because this is a card that also talks about children. If you have children, maybe are you finding that you're kindred spirit with your children, or that they are teaching you some lessons, or your pets? Because that's absolutely possible over here, right? It is like reaching clarity, like walking out of this dark. Or maybe you have been spinning in circles and keep doing the same mistakes over and over again, and now it's kind of like time to put an end to it. It's kind of like that release. It's that one, and judgment is kind of releasing. It's kind of very karmic, just like past life relationships are, because then we write them in to release us. And this, I think, is like just about to be happening. This is talking about how you function in a relationship. And Queen of Pentacles reversed is somebody who either encountering somebody or maybe exhibiting this yourself, somebody who is maybe overly stubborn, who's very beautiful and kind of manipulating with that beauty. And that kind of like would work with codependency, right? Look at this, you are with me because I'm beautiful, so you better have all the money, right? So it's kind of like that trade-off. Yeah, there we go. We have the Ace of Swords, which is another karma card. So now you are fooling yourself with something, or somebody really kind of like threw them mad at you, kind of a thing. Six of Pentacles and Ace of Swords. Six of Pentacles is always talking about kind of like needing to share, needing to do the right thing, not to give too much, not to give too little. Finding that fine-tuned balance is always kind of difficult, right? It's kind of like positioning always kind of gets hard. But this tells me, like, again, it would make sense with the codependency. Something is not there, and there is like a lack of some kind of communication. Because when the Ace of Swords reverse, it tells me like something, the truth hasn't been told, or that sort of a thing, right? Or the lie has been said, or one of those things when people almost like gaslight. So it would make sense here. I have a feeling that some of you are dealing with a narcissist. Some of you are under somebody's thumb who is really taking your generosity, or vice versa, for granted. It's just like, oh, it's okay. So give and take for them is like, well, I take everything and you give everything, right? Which is not the way it's supposed to function, right? So given that you have all this once, it looks like this is something you're really dealing with, and this is a biggie. Codependence is kind of like difficult course to cut. If you check my other channel, which kind of, if you go on about page for me on the right hand side, you're going to see Goal Realize Coaching, which is my coaching site. I only have one video yet there for now about codependency. It kind of like shows through basically through art therapy, as I call it, how basically it can be addressed and how to really get rid of it. Because unless you do, it's very hard to be happy, because then you meet people with that symbiotic relationship where there's a role playing, and you Scorpio, you're too deep. You just, roles are great for bad games, but in life you want more. You're really, really deep sign. So let's see what is imminently here in your future. Soulmate. You, I guess, thrive on soulmate kind of energy, and there is like energy in this. There is like something that kind of can keep you going. Oh my gosh, you're going from night to night, so you're almost like cranking up the volume to, like, I mean, 11 to kind of like 12. But at the same time, maybe you're pushing certain things to go too far too fast, and maybe getting a little bit bored, or even kind of like overwhelmed with something. Sometimes there's such a thing as too much of a good things, right? So all good things come to an end, right? So you know what they say, a bus station is where a bus stops, and train station is when the train stops. And kind of like the work with you is, you know, workstation where the work with you stops. So kind of like, what more can I say, right? This is also telling me that there's going to be kind of active phase in front of you, and that you're maybe going to engage in activity that eventually is going to get you really bored. And there's nothing wrong about that. It's just like trying new things. It's kind of good. So you kind of are going to activate yourself. For those of you who are looking for somebody new, there might be a choice of people, and it's going to be just a different level of maturity that they're going to introduce over there. So let's see your feelings. You kind of like really want to feel pampered. I think you're realizing that, you know, opening heart is no problem for you. You actually really value and appreciate other people who can become vulnerable, right? And at the same time, you kind of like understand that if you are to be vulnerable with someone, that you better be pleased eventually, right? And you want to reach the safety about love. And again, this card is talking about still kind of having some kind of walls in here. It's kind of like I'm getting these dual messages. Almost looks like that I have 2 or 3 different layers of Scorpios. And this is going to be, okay, what is mine, what is yours, right? It could be that there is a phase. It kind of like also feels like self-love. Scorpio, when was the last time you loved yourself? That you really said, hey, you know what, I'm not perfect, but you know what, I still kind of like did go through this and this and this, and I'm here standing, and I did this and this and this for somebody, and here I was wrong and here I was wrong, but look, I have overcome that, and I realize that now. It's kind of giving yourself the pat on the shoulder, because these 2 cards are telling me that you need to reach some kind of closure of some kind of kind, where maybe you have been taken advantage of and you maybe have left out, maybe a little bit broken, because this kitty doesn't have that much. It's a little box, but this is all he has, and to this kitty that it represents everything, and that's all that matters, really. That safety, that feeling of safety, and feeling that you have enough to cover yourself if something needs. It almost tells me that also it would be good for you to kind of like build a rainy fund kind of like day, the fund for the rainy days, pardon me, and it's kind of like feeling you guys also need to feel materially safe. It's kind of very important. So now this is kind of interesting part. This talks about the environment. Somebody is there who kind of like is interested in you, and you are not that interested in them, and I can see that you're going to actually reject them. This could be another soulmate over here. You're moving in a new phase. You're saying, you know what, que sera sera. You kind of cutting them off. You maybe did go through some kind of thinking, or they went through some kind of thinking. Look at this like heavy earth over here, the world and the hermit. There is like really something with somebody that is entering a new phase, and this new phase again is like that 9. It's 9 is like, okay, let me make myself complete. And then you see, because like here I said somebody was like really trying and seeking to see if there is something better, and you're finding that something better. You're actually demanding that something better, and that somebody else maybe doesn't measure up. Somebody else maybe missed their mark. Maybe that somebody else is for somebody else, but that somebody else at some point has been very important in your life. I see this like really earthy quality here, which means this could be your partner, ex-partner, or marriage partner, or somebody really, really important, because earth is usually connecting with marriages and kind of celebrations that we have. Here are hopes and fears. So you are really, really, really fine-tuning that frequency, that radio tune. You know what kind of music you want, and you know what kind of music you don't want. That's why it was like separation and this. So here I see separation from someone. I absolutely, it is, hey, you know, certain things didn't work out, let's kind of like separate ways, and somebody's like left really digging deep, and I don't think this is you, because this is in your environment. But here on the other hand could be somebody else that you are with, maybe who you also want to marry, but who maybe is sending you mixed signals over here, because after all, and we're going to cover this last, because you had this King of Cups and you also had the Moon. Somebody might be sending you King of Cups reversed. Okay, let's start there, because like this kind of like I wanted to address new love. As I said, it could be new love that is like new love, seeing the person in a new light, and hence it is like kind of making love stronger, right? So we have this like King of Cups reversed. The King of Cups reversed is somebody who makes big plans but never kind of like follows through with them, right? Hey, you know, you want to go there for a movie this weekend? Yeah, sure. And then you kind of like, you take that as an invitation. You take kind of like, hey, you know, I'm organizing my plans, and then they never call you. You cannot reach them, and like you puzzle with this, and now I couldn't, I had family obligations, something came up. Okay, couldn't you not let me know? You see, it's kind of like tricky for you to really trust, and that's kind of like on an intuitive way. You kind of like can feel people, but on trust is still, I think, very hard for you, I would say. And it is really saying to you that you have to resolve this fear. I have to say, Scorpio, that I see here that you actually maybe are the ones who are having this fear of commitment. And it is kind of like really interesting, like we have here a blindfolded kitty that kind of like really doesn't know which steps to take to kind of like release itself from the situation. Because like it looks like you kind of thrive on love and on affection, and then we have here reconciliation and the moon reversed. So maybe somebody, and that could be exactly the same person over here, somebody is finally giving you answers, because here I said the truth hasn't been told, almost like you're building house of cards, and you're going because you're being told yes and yes and yes, but maybe they're not even truthful to themselves. Maybe this is them, that they actually really don't know what they're doing. So they have to remove the blindfold and face whatever it is. Like this is what the moon says as well. There is like, especially if you guys have Pisces, they might be kind of like sending you really kind of like mixed signals over here. But the moon card is also talking about reversed reaching clarity, that finally that subconscious needs, and you know, this is like what the trigger points and buttons that we push in people are, and then you're just like, what the heck happened to you? So instead of blaming them, it's kind of like, let's say, let's work with that, and that kind of like is going to get resolved. But you're going to feel that why things are not about you, that still things maybe are somehow out of balance, because this is the judgment, the justice card, which is a karma card. So now we have two, and there is like a third one hidden, and then we have like 3 of Wands, which is the card, okay, Sarah, is it going to be friendship, partnership, relationship, you know, what is going to be here? So reconciliation, you know, it could be also something legal, that you guys are maybe going through something that is scary for you. That can mean that can mean actually losing ability to reach consensus. This actually can mean also losing a literal lawsuit or something. You really believed somebody's word, so it can be like also contract decisions that you believed somebody very much, and they just like simply either betray that, which I see here in your feelings, and hence you kind of like climb up and say, oh, wait a minute, what happened here, kind of a thing. Because like, let's go back to your hopes and fears, right? Calling in your soulmate, but you don't want something immature, Knave of Chalices, something, oh, you know, let's hold hands, great, you know, that's kind of like getting too hard and too old, and you know, you kind of like need more substance. And the 6 of Wands is about passion, it's about victory, it is about kind of like being ahead, but like maybe somebody needs in this relationship or in this situation feel like a winner. And they're like, I see conflict of interest. I see that certain things are getting too hard, because there is like this duality between very raw romance, maybe somebody not being mature enough to be in romance. And that maturity is not linked to the age, because you can have like 70-year-old who kind of like still a baby, right? And vice versa. You can have a very mature, young, stoic people. But this is telling me that there is a lot of sexuality involved, which I think is the music to your ears, and that's probably all you're going to hear from this entire reading. Sex, 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 sex. And that's okay. But this is also talking about understanding that if you're in a relationship and if you're calling in your soulmate, that the arrangements where one wins, another one loses, are always going to be basically win-lose, which is lose situation. For a win-win, both of them have to win. Any other combination is lose, and this is where many people go wrong. Having said all of that, which direction you're going into, love yourself first. So just like in your feelings, it is safe for you to love and love yourself first. I think this is the underlying thing. Yes, you can move forward. There is no problem. Finally, King of Wands is appearing. You want to share your life with someone. You want to share active life with someone. And you're going to really defend your own attitude. Just like love yourself first. Because look at this, how many naysayers. And it looks like you have everybody against you. But you're going to hold your position. There is like certain power in the position that you have. And maybe somebody wants to knock you off. Like we had that 6 over here. And be very careful, because the entire reading, especially with this duality that I see, is giving me this flavor of power games and games. And I think it is time for you to overcome that, because this is saying to me that somebody doesn't want to be alone. And maybe this is not the best reason to be in a relationship if this is you, or if somebody else is with you just because the product of loneliness. And that's with codependency. You usually have a narcissist and you have somebody who suffers from chronic loneliness. You know, this kind of like certain things can actually go off the rails. The truth is, what is the only solution in the situation? You have to put yourself first, you have to love yourself first, and you have to be able to trust. And trust comes with time. And trust also comes, and it's easier to develop when a person has kind of like this fullness, right? And again, you cannot kind of force things here, but this doesn't mean you have to give up things either. This is why this is saying forgiving. You got lots of forgiving, and saying kind of like really focus, like the finances and career. I think this is telling me to focus on yourself, to kind of like not to forget yourself in this entire process. These heart-to-heart conversations, guys, it is something expressing what is dear in your heart to you and communicating what it is. Maybe somebody's not telling you something because they're afraid that you're going to leave them. But it's kind of funny, because you almost like will thrive on people opening their heart to you. You kind of like are almost going to be more interested in them. So I actually see certain things getting derailed, which shouldn't be derailed, but this is probably a very good time for this to be kind of like looked upon and even kind of like remedied. So Scorpio, this is going to be really interesting. I would love to hear your comments. And again, this is a general reading. To get your private reading, check me at cattarot.ca. And I would really appreciate if you are already here, that you give me your thumbs up and you share, and join me on my Instagram and on my Facebook. I have one more thing before we go. I actually pulled one more card for you, and you got Magic Stream reversed, which kind of is very interesting, because we also, let's not forget, we had the effortless. And so one kind of like it's almost going down, as I said, you're kind of flowing and just let it happen. So let's see what happens with Magic Stream reversed. And this is what it says. In the reverse position, the Magic Stream card represents swimming against the current. There are times when effort and sheer willpower result in victory and celebration, but this isn't one of them. You can't force inspiration, and you can't manufacture creativity, lest you borrow too heavily from others' ideas. Neither can you make someone love you, or orchestrate a series of events that might place you in a more favorable position. Now is the time to drop the trying and jump into the stream and float. Immerse yourself in the experience of being fully present with whatever is true for the moment. You'll never step in the same river twice anyway. So I really, really think that maybe you have hardened over time with circumstances, with kind of juggling a whole bunch of things. And it is time to reclaim yourself, because that's really all that is needed for the sun to shine again, for you to know you just cannot be with somebody just because they want to, or you know, you cannot even allow yourself furthermore, and it's kind of like really important for you to reclaim you, and I think you're going to be very successful at that, my dear Scorpio. So thanks again, and I'm looking forward to hearing your comments. All the best.